Over a millennium, Islamic society evolved from a small, localized faith in the corner of the Arabian Peninsula into a cultural, scientific, and political force spanning several continents. Starting from the Prophet Muhammad's mission in Mecca to the final collapse of the Ottoman Empire after World War I. This is 1,000 years of Islam's history. The Bedouin Arabs. In the 6th century, the Arabian Peninsula was a fragmented and desolate region on the fringes of great empires. To the west lies the heirs of the once mighty Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire. Although now an echo of its past, it is the bastion of Christianity. To the east loomed the Sasanian Empire, the last empire of ancient Iran, embodying Persian sophistication and Zoroastrian faith. Sandwiched between these powers, the Arabian Peninsula remained largely overlooked, inhabited by nomadic Bedouin tribes who herded livestock and traded goods across the deserts. Politically, the region was decentralized, with no overarching authority. Economically, it thrived in certain areas due to caravan trade routes connecting the Indian Ocean with the Mediterranean. The religious life of the peninsula mirrored its diversity. The majority of Arabs practiced polytheism, worshipping numerous deities whose idols were housed in the Kaaba, a sanctuary in Mecca, which would become the center of Islam the following centuries. However, alongside these practices, Jewish and Christian communities were present, particularly in the fertile regions of Yemen and the Levantine fringes. Though fragmented, this cultural milieu set the stage for a transformation that would alter the course of history. In the year 570 CE, Muhammad was born in Mecca, a thriving center of commerce and culture in the Arabian Peninsula. Islamic tradition identifies him as the final prophet in a lineage including Moses and Jesus. Entrusted with restoring monotheism among the Arab people, Muhammad is said to have received revelations from God, which were later compiled into the Quran, forming the spiritual foundation of Islam. The early years of his mission were marked by resistance and persecution in Mecca, where his message challenged the social and religious norms of the Arabs. In 622 CE, he and his followers migrated to Medina in an event known as the Hijra, a pivotal moment that signified both a new beginning for the Muslim community and the start of the Islamic calendar. In Medina, Muhammad established a cohesive community, uniting various tribes under shared beliefs and practices. His actions contributed to the formation of a structured Muslim community, though despite his profound achievements, Muhammad left no clear successor, heir, or blueprint for an empire. His death in 632 CE left his followers with the monumental challenge of interpreting his teachings and shaping a legacy that would ultimately span continents and centuries, far beyond what he may have envisioned. Foundations and fractures. Muhammad's death in 632 left the Muslim community facing a critical question. Who would lead in his absence? Without a clear successor designated, this uncertainty gave rise to the Caliphate, a political and spiritual institution established to preserve Muhammad's legacy and guide the growing Muslim community. This new role paved the way for the first leaders of this institution, known as the Rashidun Caliphs, or rightly guided ones, who played a foundational role in shaping the early Islamic state. The first caliph was Abu Bakr, a close companion of Muhammad and his father-in-law. Abu Bakr's leadership was pivotal during this turbulent period as he worked to unite the Muslim community. His reign began with the Ridda Wars, a series of campaigns to suppress tribal uprisings, and he later initiated military expeditions against the Byzantine and Sasanian empires, setting the stage for Islamic expansion. Under the second Caliph, Umar ibn al-Khattab, the Muslim state grew into a formidable power. By the end of Umar's tenure, 634–644, Muslim forces had established control over vast regions, including Persia, Syria, and Egypt. These conquests were not merely territorial, but included sophisticated systems of governance and taxation that solidified the caliphate's authority and infrastructure. However, unity within the community was tested by questions of leadership. Ali ibn Abi Talib, a cousin and son-in-law of Muhammad, was regarded by some as the rightful successor due to his familial connection and early devotion to Islam. This belief gave rise to the Shia movement, whose adherents supported Ali's claim. Others, known as Sunnis, upheld the legitimacy of the existing caliphate. This schism marked the beginning of a division that would shape Islamic history for centuries to come. 4. Dynastic ambitions and expansion. The assassination of Ali in 661 marked a turning point in Islamic history, as the leadership of the Muslim world shifted to the Umayyad dynasty. Centered in Syria, the Umayyads transformed the caliphate from a community-based leadership into a hereditary monarchy. They moved the capital from Medina to Damascus, establishing it as the political and cultural hub of their vast empire. Over the next 90 years, the Umayyads presided over a second wave of conquests, expanding their territory from the borders of India in the east to the Iberian Peninsula in the west, where they founded the Islamic State of Al-Andalus. However, their advance into Western Europe was halted in 732 at the Battle of Tours, where Frankish forces led by Charles Martel delivered a decisive defeat. The Umayyad rulers centralized power and sought to unify their diverse empire through administrative reforms. They adopted Arabic as the empire's official language, standardized coinage, and initiated grand architectural projects, including the iconic Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem and the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus. These achievements solidified their legacy as builders of a powerful state, but their rule was not without controversy. Tensions simmered under the surface of Umayyad governance. Non-Arab Muslims who felt marginalized harbored resentment toward the ruling elite. The massacre of Hussein ibn Ali, Muhammad's grandson, at Karbala in 680 marked a critical moment in the rift between Sunni and Shia Muslims. This tragic event became a defining symbol for Shia Islam and highlighted the dynasty's harsh measures against dissent. By the mid-8th century, growing dissatisfaction led to widespread rebellion. Opposition forces, united by shared grievances, launched a revolution that culminated in the violent overthrow of the Umayyad dynasty in 750. Most members of the Umayyad family were killed, with a few escaping to Al-Andalus, where a remnant of the dynasty continued to rule. The Abbasids and the Golden Age. In the wake of the revolution, the Abbasids rose to power in 750. Claiming descent from Muhammad's uncle Abbas, they established a new dynasty that would endure for over 5 centuries. They moved the capital to Baghdad, a purpose-built city built on the Tigris River, which became a beacon of learning and culture. Designed with grandeur and sophistication, Baghdad quickly became the largest and most prosperous city of its time, renowned for its circular layout and flourishing gardens. Unparalleled in its grandeur, the Abbasids presided over Islam's Golden Age, fostering advancements and achievements. They shifted focus from territorial expansion to intellectual and cultural development. Scholars translated scientific and philosophical texts from Greek, Persian and Indian sources into Arabic, creating a foundation for groundbreaking advancements. Luminaries such as Al-Kindi in philosophy, Al-Razi in medicine, and Al-Khwarizmi in mathematics contributed works that would later influence European science and learning. Unlike their Umayyad predecessors, the Abbasids embraced a more inclusive administration, incorporating non-Arabic elements. This cultural diversity enriched Islamic civilization, but also diluted Arab dominance, something that would lead to their demise. The Muslim Schism. From the mid-9th century, the Abbasids faced increasing challenges to their authority. Local governors, empowered by the Caliphate's vast size, began asserting independence, creating rival states. At the same time, the emergence of Shia dynasties like the Persian Umayyads and the Fatimids in North Africa and Egypt reflected the growing diversity within Islam. These new powers frequently contested the Abbasids' leadership, turning the once centralized empire into a mosaic of competing entities. The Fatimids, an ambitious Shia dynasty tracing its lineage to Fatima, Muhammad's daughter, established a rival caliphate. Centered in Cairo, they ruled vast territories across North Africa and the Eastern Mediterranean, promoting Shia Islam and challenging Sunni dominance. Meanwhile, to the east, the Persian Umayyads, though Shia themselves, took control of Baghdad in 945. Instead of overthrowing the Sunni Abbasid Caliph, they reduced his role to that of a symbolic figurehead, effectively governing the empire from behind the scenes. This period also saw a resurgence of Persian culture. Persian dynasties adopted the Arabic script, but revived their language and traditions, leading to a cultural renaissance. Meanwhile, in the West, in Spain, the Umayyads, who had fled the Abbasid Revolution, created their own independent realm, which flourished as a center of Islamic art and science, even as it resisted the Christian Reconquista. By the 10th century, the political landscape of the Islamic world was fragmented, but this fragmentation was also a source of cultural richness. Sunni Abbasid Caliphate continued to serve as a unifying symbol of Islam, despite losing much of its direct political power. The 11th century, the echo of hooves thundered across the steppes of Central Asia, heralding the arrival of the Turkic tribes who would reshape the Middle East, North Africa, and Eastern Europe for the centuries to come. The Turks, proud nomadic horsemen, carried with them the traditions of the steppe and the ancient belief of Tengrism. Over generations, many Turkic peoples embraced Sunni Islam, blending their nomadic heritage with a newfound spiritual mission. This transformation created a powerful force that would redefine the destiny of the Middle East. The Seljuks, a leading Turkic dynasty, rose to prominence as champions of Sunni Islam. In 1055, the Seljuks entered Baghdad, bringing an end to the Shia Umayyad dynasty and restoring Sunni authority. They established the title of Sultan, combining political leadership with their role as protectors of the faith, a role the Turks would carry until the modern era. The Seljuks weren't merely conquerors, they were state builders. They preserved the Abbasid Caliphate as a symbol of unity while taking on the responsibility of governance. In 1071, on the plains of Manzikert, fate brought the Seljuk Turks and the Byzantine Greeks face to face for the first time, a rivalry that would continue to modern times, in a clash that would reshape history. Sultan Alp Arslan, leading a smaller, agile force of around 20,000, unexpectedly faced Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes at the head of a massive Byzantine army, estimated at over 70,000. Confident in their superior numbers, the Byzantines launched an aggressive campaign to reclaim lost territories and halt Turkic raids. However, Alp Arslan's tactical brilliance turned the tide. using the mobility of his cavalry and feigned retreats to confuse and encircle the enemy. The Seljuks delivered a crushing defeat. The Byzantine army was decimated. Romanos IV was captured. For the Turks, Manzikert was more than a military success. It was a turning point that transformed Anatolia from a Greek Christian stronghold into a Turkic homeland. From this foundation emerged the Sultanate of Rum, a Seljuk offshoot that kept the Turkic spirit alive and thriving in Anatolia, paving the way for the rise of the last caliphs of the Ottoman Empire centuries later. In 1095, Christian Europe launched a series of military campaigns aimed at reclaiming Jerusalem and other holy sites. The Crusaders' early victories, including the capture of Jerusalem in 1099, shocked the Islamic world. The Seljuks, alongside their allies, viewed these incursions as an affront to their faith and land, responding with resistance. Amid this prolonged conflict, the 12th century saw the emergence of Saladin, a Sunni leader whose vision and charisma united Muslim forces against the Crusaders. Saladin dismantled the Shia Fatimid dynasty in Egypt, founding the Ayyubid dynasty, which ruled over Egypt and Syria. His leadership culminated in the decisive Battle of Hattin in 1187, where his forces achieved a major victory, reclaiming Jerusalem and delivering a critical blow to Crusader ambitions. However, while this triumph significantly weakened the Crusaders, they managed to maintain a presence in the region for another century, continuing their struggle for dominance. At the same time, the Seljuk Empire, once a dominant force in the Islamic world, fractured and eventually collapsed. In the aftermath, the Turkic Khwarezmian Empire rose to prominence. Previously subordinate to the Seljuks, the Khwarezmians established their authority over Iran and parts of Central Asia, introducing a new power dynamic to the region. Mongols and Genghis Khan. The 13th century saw the arrival of a second wave of nomadic tribes, following the earlier Turkic migrations of the 11th century that had reshaped the Islamic world. The Mongols, emerging from the steppes north of China, united under the leadership of Genghis Khan, forged a coalition of tribes with unparalleled skill. Known for their ferocity and tactical brilliance, the Mongols created the largest contiguous empire the world had ever seen, sweeping across Asia and into the Islamic heartlands. The Mongols first clashed with the Islamic world after a disastrous decision by the rulers of the Khwarezmian Empire, who executed Mongol merchants. In retaliation, Genghis Khan unleashed a relentless campaign of destruction, obliterating the Khwarezmian state. By the mid-13th century, the Mongols had taken control of vast territories, including Iran, the Caucasus, and parts of Anatolia. Hulagu Khan, Genghis Khan's grandson, set his sights on Baghdad, the symbolic and intellectual heart of the Islamic world. In 1258, Hulagu demanded the submission of the Abbasid Caliph. The Caliph refused, unwilling to bow to the Mongols. What followed was one of the most catastrophic events in Islamic history. The Mongols laid siege to Baghdad, razing the city to the ground. Its inhabitants were slaughtered, and the famed House of Wisdom, a repository of centuries of Islamic scholarship, was destroyed. The Caliph met a grim fate, executed by being rolled in a carpet and trampled by horses. This marked the end of 500 years of Abbasid leadership and symbolized the close of the Islamic Golden Age. After the destruction of Baghdad, Hulagu turned his attention to Egypt. Here, a new power had risen: the Mamluk Sultanate. These elite Turkic slave soldiers, originally brought from the steppes and trained as a formidable military force, had overthrown the Ayyubid dynasty and established their own rule. Converted to Islam from their Central Asian Tengrism beliefs and deeply loyal to their newly adopted faith, the Mamluks represented a powerful new force in the Islamic world. In 1260, they achieved one of the most remarkable victories in Islamic history at the Battle of Ain Jalut. Under Sultan Qutuz and General Baybars, the Mamluks decisively defeated the Mongols, halting their previously unstoppable advance. This unprecedented victory not only preserved the Islamic world from Mongol domination, but also showcased the Mamluks' strategic brilliance and military strength. Under the Mamluks, Cairo emerged as the cultural and political heart of the Islamic world. The city became a symbol of their power and vision, adorned with grand mosques, madrasas, schools, and palaces that showcased their wealth and architectural ambition. While the Mamluks revived the Abbasid Caliphate in name by placing a figurehead caliph in Cairo, true authority remained firmly in their hands. Their government operated as a highly militarized state, thriving on the revenues of trade and agriculture, which they controlled with precision. Baybar, who succeeded Qutuz as Sultan, built upon this success. He crushed the remaining Crusader strongholds in the Levant, accelerating the decline of Crusader influence in the region. These twin victories against the Mongols and the Crusaders solidified the Mamluks' reputation as the defenders of Islam. The Mamluk Sultanate would go on to rule for 250 years, becoming a central force in the Islamic world up until the emergence of one of the mightiest empires to existence, the Ottoman Empire. Anatolia had become a complex patchwork, where tribal alliances and rivalries shaped power dynamics. Amid this environment of shifting loyalties and competition, a small Turkic principality in northwestern Anatolia, led by Osman I, began its rise. Through shrewd diplomacy and military prowess, the Ottomans steadily expanded their territory. By the mid-14th century, they had crossed into Europe, securing parts of the Balkans and establishing a lasting foothold that would become a cornerstone of their empire. The turning point in the Ottoman rise came in 1453, when Mehmed II, known as Mehmed the Conqueror, led his forces to capture Constantinople. The fall of this ancient city ended more than a millennium of Byzantine rule and transformed it into the Ottoman capital. He invited people of diverse backgrounds, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, to repopulate the city, fostering a unique blend of Islamic and Byzantine traditions. Under his guidance, Istanbul became a thriving center of commerce, culture, and governance, symbolizing the Ottoman Empire's role as a unifying force in the region. In a bold assertion of their authority, the Ottomans formally declared their sultans as caliphs. This elevated their position as the defenders and leaders of Sunni Islam. The 16th century marked the golden age of Ottoman power under the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent, one of history's most celebrated rulers. Suleiman led numerous military campaigns that extended the empire's borders to unprecedented dimensions. At its peak, the Ottoman Empire stretched across Southeast Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Central Asia, making it one of the largest and most influential empires of its time. The Gunpowder Empires. The Ottomans in Europe and the Mediterranean, the Safavids in Persia, and the Mughals in India, whom also shared Turkic lineage, became the three gunpowder empires, leading a technological edge in military warfare and dominating vast regions, spreading terror to their neighbors and authority to their subjects. The Safavid Empire, founded by Shah Ismail in the early 16th century, unified Persia under Twelver Shia Islam, establishing a strong state identity, but also deepening the religious divide with the Sunni Ottomans. The Mughals rose to power in India under rulers like Akbar and Shah Jahan. They skillfully blended Islamic and Indian traditions, leaving behind cultural wonders and architectural legacies such as the Taj Mahal, flourishing arts and robust economies, until they struggled with European colonial expansion and the pressures of modernization which threatened their stability in later years. The Ottomans, despite their earlier dominance in trade, military innovation, and leadership of Sunni Islam, found it increasingly difficult to adapt to the shifting global order, eventually leading to their gradual decline. After World War I and the Turkish War of Independence, the modern Turkish state decided to become a secular republic and decided to officially abolish the caliphate in 1924, severing its symbolic link to the Islamic political and religious authority. With this act, the long history of the caliphate, once the unifying structure of the Islamic world, from the Rashidun to the Ottomans, came to a close. The last Caliph and Ottoman Sultan Abdulmejid II spent his later years in exile in France. He passed away in 1944 during the Nazi occupation of the city and was later buried in Medina, near the Prophet's Mosque, marking the symbolic end of the Caliphate's legacy.